What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 62 of Lobbing Scorchers. This is Ari Lillianwall. I got producer Noah here with me. And Noah, unfortunately, we have to bring the people another L pod today. How are you feeling?
Back to back. Bringing it back. An L against LAFC, an L against Portland. I don't think we have much honor left right now. The sinking feeling that I'm getting is not great, right?
Dignity, it's in short supply right now, but we're still going to lay down this L pod. It's just two back-to-back L's that are pretty tough, I think. You know, either one of these L's in isolation would be tough enough, but like 3 days apart, it's tough. But, you know, as I always say, we don't shy away from the results here on Lobbing Scorchers. If it's an L pod, it's an L pod, you know? So we're going to break down this L. Tragic L as the Seattle Sounders went down to Providence Park with really, I think, a great chance to salvage some vibes after that U.S. Open Cup defeat at Starfire. You know, you go down to your rival's house and you take a dub. Not only are we recording a dub pod, but you've also kind of you've turned things around from that Open Cup L, and they had a chance to do that, and instead they take a 1-0 defeat to another rival opponent, this time their most heated rival. So we're going to give our takeaways from the L, including some thoughts on the narratives of the national pundits today. We're gonna spend some time talking about the national pundits. Yeah, the pundits finally, they got in more of the weeds than they have been talking about Seattle's struggles this season and their prospects of contending. I don't really know what for what reason exactly, other than, you know, Taylor Twellman specifically was the pundit who was weighing in on the discourse, and he was broadcasting the match. So I think that was really the root of it. But he had some takes that got the discourse flowing. And you know, we like TT around here. I don't always agree with his takes, but they're always at least well thought out. And
he's welcome on the Scorchers pod anytime.
Yeah, we got to get him on the show. You know,
yeah.
I've interviewed him before for a story, so maybe we can make that happen.
Yeah.
But his take, I think it at least gave, even if you don't agree with it, it was some food for thought. So we're gonna break down the take. We're gonna preview Seattle's upcoming match at Columbus Crew, which that's super.
A good one. Let's tack that bad boy on the end.
That's super awesome that's the team that they're playing next. It should go great at lower.com field. So I can tell you all about the Crew. They do have some notable absences for this game that we'll talk about, see if that we think that gives Seattle a better chance of taking a result in the game. We're also going to hit our agenda check, do winners and losers from around MLS. And then I had one news item that I wanted to hit at the end of the show.
Heck yeah.
And then we'll call it a wrap for episode 62. But first, I wanted to let you all know that Lobbing Scorchers is a part of the Sounder at Heart podcast network.
Heck yeah, it is.
If you want to get the best independent Seattle soccer coverage, consider supporting us by going to sounderatheart.com/LS. That's sounderatheart.com/LS. Scroll down to subscribe and support to get 30 days completely free. Every sign up through our link, sounderatheart.com/LS, helps to support and grow this show. We have some new supporters.
Yeah, we do.
To thank on this show, which is very exciting.
Our Yamar led the way.
Our Yamar led the way, and we added a couple on top of that. So I'm going to pull up those names real quick, which I should have done earlier, but now I'm going to do right now.
Do you want me to take lead? I've got them up.
You've got it up?
Should
All
I
right.
do it? This is the first time ever.
Go ahead, Noah. Thank the new ones, and then read off the whole list.
All right, we've got a few new ones here. Patrick Sexton was our Yamar, so again, thank you, Patrick. But 3 new ones, John Hammaker, Imani Bach, and Justin Walker. We appreciate you 3 for joining the Lobbing Scorchers ranks of scorching elite hot anyway, let's get back to the rest of our subscribers here, though. Kenneth Wade, Joey Pasquinelli, David McCoy, Owen Mason, Daniel Pivado, Samuel Fout, Ian Mitchell, Christopher Smith, Norm Bontier, Thomas Martin, Greg Hoker, Chris Maley, Andy Hill, Mike Lentini, Nate Bontier, David Rodriguez, CJ and Miles Marinakis.
My nephews.
My nephews. I almost said cousins there. What are we doing? Mark Ottinger, Zach Heckman, David Pope, Brian Morton, Claire Berger, Robert Singh, Tyler Nakatsu, Steve Hudson, Choksa, Patrick Sexton again. Thank you, Yamar. Wow.
Hell yeah. Good job, Noah. And thank you all so much to all of our subs. We love and appreciate all of you. And we love and appreciate all our listeners and viewers, even if you're not subbed. But if you do want to sub, sounderatheart.com/LS. And also, if you're listening to this, you haven't done so yet, Sub to the Lobbing Scorchers YouTube. The drive to 500 subs on our YouTube is alive and well. We're just short, actually. We're at 496. I just looked. So I need 4 of you out there who haven't done it yet to get us to 500. I think that's our biggest milestone yet. I've been waiting for this one. I was checking it today, hoping we could get there before we recorded. But I think it's actually better that we're like just a little bit short, because now we're going to pass it tomorrow. I know for sure.
Yeah.
So thank you to our new audience on YouTube. Our numbers on there are doing, a lot better than I would have thought, Noah. So I think it's cool that we're once again infiltrating a new audience, and appreciate all the support as we try and grow on there. All right, let's do this L pod, Noah. Let's just do it, get it over with. Sounders Timbers at Providence Park. Earlier this season, Seattle went down there and they actually snapped the streak of poor results they had in these rivalry matches against Portland. They got a 2-1 victory in that game. Remember, that was the game where Rui Diaz scored the banger, and finally the talking point of constantly taking L's against Portland was over. But unfortunately, that narrative has gained a little bit of steam again with this L. Let's hit our lineup reaction to start it off, because there is a little bit of rotation, mixing and matching going on here. Specifically, Pedro de la Vega got the start. Christian moved back to the double pivot with Josh Atencio, and then you had your normal back line, and then Stephen Fry. However, Stephen Fry did not stay in this match very long. He got knocked out super early on a pretty scary sequence. Big collision with Mason Toy where it looked like knee to head contact. He was being evaluated for a concussion, and it sounds like he is unfortunately going to miss this Columbus game as he goes through the concussion protocol. So obviously, best wishes to Stephen Fry. That was a huge collision. It was pretty gnarly. You never want to see that. But Andy T came in like 6 minutes into the game and finished out the match. And, I thought Andy T once again did reasonably well. But, I think the main new wrinkle to this lineup was the De La Vega start and Christian moving back to the double pivot. I mean, Noah, did you have any other thoughts on the lineup?
I was really excited to see De La Vega get the start here. I've been pontificating on this is going to be his big match. This is going to be his breakout moment. We haven't seen it yet, but I think this match was a really great opportunity for him to have the confidence to go into a rivalry match with that on his shoulders, but also a lot of, reps that he's been working up to this. So this was exciting for me to see. The Christian Atencio double pivot, I was actually interested. I was interested with that. As JP has been on a little bit of a decline, I thought that was an interesting little wrinkle. Maybe it was good, maybe it was bad. I don't know. I don't think I really am sold one way or the other. But yeah, that was kind of my reaction to the lineup. I wasn't super surprised that they were rotating, but I was happily surprised with the rotation they did have.
Yeah, I agree. It was good to see De La Vega start, and we're going to hit our De La Vega takes in the agenda check, actually, and break down his performance a little more. But, I mean, I'll say that I thought he played pretty well. He almost scored a goal. He had some dangerous moments. I think his last couple appearances, you are seeing the type of impact that he can make. We've been saying all season that we want to see enough of a sample size to get an idea just one way or the other. I just want to know. I'm just curious. So I'm glad that he's getting enough run to actually finally have some informed takes on, just how he looks and what he brings to the table. But Seattle was unable to quite score in this game. They had good chances. Seattle had a ton of corner kicks in this game. They had 15 corner kicks or something. It felt like every sequence of possession they were getting a corner. And De La Vega actually scored a goal off a corner kick that was really well executed, except he was just offside. And that was really, I think, a defining moment in this game. He did not need to be offside on that play. Yeah, that's exactly how you draw it up. And really, if he just had a tiny bit more awareness of his positioning in that moment, that's a good goal. And Seattle has the lead. That could totally have changed the game. So I thought, despite the fact they didn't score off one, I did think Seattle's set pieces, including the one sent in by Albert Rusnak, continue to be good. And you gotta get on side there. And I think it's even more frustrating because of having the one in the LAFC game barely get called off on a borderline offside call as well. So that's two games in a row where Seattle's in a big spot like that, and they have one just barely offside. So that was unfortunate, and Seattle ends up getting shut out, and they just did not have enough on offense in this game. You know what it felt like to me, Noah, was a little bit like the vibes of the early 2024 XG Merchant Sounders,
Yes.
where it actually felt like the offense was functioning okay. The set pieces were good. And they just couldn't finish their chances. That's what it felt like on offense. And then in the 55th minute, the Timbers get the only goal they needed to win the game. They got out running, and they had Seattle on their back heels. And Nuhu didn't close down Mosquera enough on that play. He needed to step to him earlier, I think. He was getting pushed backwards. And the shot, it's a pretty speculative shot, but takes a deflection, pretty unlucky, and there's no way Andy T could have gotten to it. So
he made a good attempt.
He made a good attempt. I do think it's funny. Every time I defend Nuhu, which I did on the last show, he either has like a really bad game the next game or a critical defensive error, or like a red card the next game. So it's unfortunate that happened again. But the one thing I will say is, like, I think if you're blaming Nuhu for this result, I think it's kind of missing the point. When you're playing Portland on the road, the odds that you're going to get scored on at least once are pretty high, no matter how well you play on defense. You need to be able to score one yourself. Ideally, multiple goals in a game yourself to have a really good chance at getting a result. I thought the defense played pretty damn well in this game. I thought Nuhu, other than that one play, was fine. So
he made a couple good passes too, which I know
he's
like,
been
the
getting a
bar
little
is in
better.
the ground,
Yeah.
but like. I got to give him credit where credit's due. Like, I agree with you. This was not Nuhu's fault that this entire game went to shit.
I agree with the people who at least partially lay the blame to him on that one play.
Yes.
But that's one play over the course of a whole game where you got shut out, and you need to be able to score. So that's my take on that.
Both things can be true, Ari.
Both things are true in this case. But okay, I wanted to dive into this instead of the rapid fire takeaways. We're just going to talk about this take from the national pundits, or the national pundit specifically, Taylor Twellman, because he was waxing poetic on the broadcast in this game. And basically, I'm going to summarize what I interpreted of his take, and then we're going to give our takes on the take. So basically, Noah, what TT was saying was that he felt like the Seattle team doesn't have the horses to really contend this year, which I think we both agree with that. We've been saying that for pretty much all season.
2 years,
all year.
yeah.
But he kind of had a different path to get to that conclusion than we do. Basically, the first thing he said was that he felt like this team couldn't win MLS Cup with Jordan Morris as the main number 9. And he was citing some statistics regarding Seattle's record and output versus playoff teams, and Morris and Rusnak's output versus those playoff teams, or those better teams in particular, as evidence to kind of say that those two can't carry the load for an MLS Cup contending team, and that Seattle's going to need to address that personnel-wise to kind of get back to their former glory. And the stat he cited, I think both on the broadcast and later on Twitter, was he was looking at their output for the season, and Jordan Morris and Albert Rusnak have combined for 3 goals and 4 assists this year against playoff teams. So really, it's kind of he's talking about the BWP Sounders only beat up on bad team agenda. He's saying that the Rusnak-Morris duo feasts against inferior opposition, and they don't come through in the big games, and so they're going to need to sign like some players that can perform under the bright lights.
He wants to replace those 2 players specifically, though. He thinks they need a 9, right? Is that kind of...
Okay, so I don't think it's about necessarily replacing Jordan Morris, but I think having him not be the full-time number 9 and moving him back out to the wing and signing a DP number 9 that's ostensibly more able to perform against these playoff teams. So I wanted to talk about if we agree or disagree on that, because I'm going to be honest, I disagree with the method that TT used to get to this conclusion. First of all, I just want to talk about this premise that Jordan Morris and Albert Rusnak only perform against bad teams and don't score goals or create goals in big games. Let's talk about Jordan first, because I think the idea that Jordan Morris has not scored goals in big games is just not historically accurate. I made a little list here off the top of my head of big games in which Jordan Morris has scored goals. You could go back all the way to his rookie year of 2016, a year that Seattle ended up winning MLS Cup. Jordan Morris scored the game-winning goal in the Western Conference Championship against the Colorado Rapids, famously, when he had the flu. That was his flu game.
Yeah,
remember that?
I do.
That was a pretty big game. Big goal. 2019 in the playoffs against FC Dallas. That was probably his best ever game. He had a playoff hat trick against FC Dallas, who, I mean, you can say whatever you want about FC Dallas. They were in the playoffs every year during those years. And Jordan Morris scored a hat trick against them in the 2019 playoffs, another year where Seattle almost won MLS Cup. He had 3 goals during the 2022 CCL run, which Seattle won famously. You could look at his USMNT career, which a lot of people aren't going to want to hear this. But he scored several big goals for the USMNT. He scored for the USMNT against Mexico when he was still a college student. That was a big goal. He scored a huge one at El Salvador in World Cup qualifying. People kind of forget how big of a goal that was in the octagonal. And, again, people might not want to hear that, but that was a big goal in a big spot. In the playoffs for his career, 8 goals and 3 assists, including 5 goals combined the years that they won MLS Cup, and a couple last year as well. Not in the playoffs last year, but he scored a lot of playoff goals.
Yeah,
is my point. So I just if you want to say that you don't like him as the full-time number 9, that's one argument. But I think the idea that to make the case that he isn't a big game player, doesn't score goals in big games, you need to look at more of a sample size than purely the games they've played against non-playoff teams this year. You have to look at the full body of work. And I think there's a lot more evidence to suggest that Jordan Morris has been quite a good big game player, as opposed to someone who shrinks from the moment, or whatever the implication may be. And then even if you look at Rusnak, I could go back through just his Sounders career, not even getting into the RSL part of his career, and name you several big goals as well. This year in Leagues Cup, people aren't acknowledging this, but these games happened against the LA Galaxy, who are one of the best teams in MLS this year, and against Pumas. Rusnak was dominant. He played great in those games. He was scoring goals. He was his service was great. He was playing great as a facilitator. So I count those games as big game performances. You might remember he scored a big goal in CCL as well, in the NYCFC series.
I was there.
Yeah, we were both there. That was a very important big goal. I still don't think they win CCL that year without him, and I credit him too for just kind of the team first nature of playing out of position and playing a role that he doesn't normally play and adapting to it and doing it at a high enough level where they could win a lot of really hard games during that CCL run. And he also, that was a big game goal. He scored against LAFC. Did you know that? I mean, his first year on the team, he scored a goal against LAFC. That was a big game goal against a good opponent. Those are hard to come by. He's one of the only ones on the team lately that can say that. This year against Real Salt Lake, his former club, who are top 3 in the West this year, he scored a really great free kick in that game. That was a goal in a big game against a high quality opponent. Last year at Orlando City, remember that one? They were second in the Shield race last year. He scored a banger free kick goal in that game. And then if you go back and look at his RSL tenure, where he played quite a bit longer than he's played for Seattle to this point, I don't remember really any narrative from their fan base. And if there's any RSL fans out there who did think this about Rusnak, feel free to chime in. But he and Krylak, I think, were considered very good, very productive, and clutch players for that team during those years. So I think what's happening here is that there is a small sample size of games being used to prove a point that if you look at the full body of work for each player, I don't think it's necessarily true. And I know I'm going off here on a tangent, Noah, but I'm gonna keep going because all right. So I wanted to refer to a thread by our friend AP who posted a lengthy thread on Twitter kind of addressing this take. And I think
Taylor Twellman was not happy with this thread, by the way.
Okay, well, yeah, I think AP, he put it better than I could, and really he made some points that I've been kind of trying to make on this show for a while, and I think just the way he put it is better than I could put it. So I'm basically just going to read what AP said, and then we're going to talk about more of our takes on the take, okay? So AP said, regarding the Jordan Morris at forward discussion, which Taylor Twellman was saying he shouldn't be the full-time number 9. Saying Morris at the 9 is the problem because he doesn't score enough goals versus a good team misses the context that no one else on the team is scoring many open play goals, regardless of opponent quality. Exactly.
Correct.
What's the real problem? That Jordan Morris's 14 goals haven't come against better opponents, or that the 9 other wingers and attacking mids on the roster have a total of 15 goals between them?
Yep.
Exactly.
Leo Chu, where you at?
Okay, this is a great point again right here. Our most goal-dangerous winger is Paul Rothrock, which is a credit to Paul Rothrock and an indictment of all the other options on the roster.
Correct.
Exactly. That's a point that I've tried to make too. We love Paul Rothrock on this show. He should not be carrying all of your wide production in attack.
Yeah.
He can't be if you're really expecting to contend for anything. And that's not a knock on Paul Rothrock at all. That's just like the reality of where the roster's at. And then finally he says, Leo Chu had 4 assists in a single game to number 9 Jordan Morris last season and has fallen off so hard that he isn't even making the bench anymore. The lack of danger from anything other than Rusnak assisting Morris is the bigger issue. So that's exactly how
Correct.
I see it.
Yeah.
Jordan Morris and Albert Rusnak, I think you are bugging to blame them for the things that have gone wrong on offense this year. They're the only 2 guys producing.
Yeah.
What are we talking
and
about?
And Rothrock.
Well,
okay, come on.
Yeah, and Paul Rothrock, but like they are carrying by far the vast majority of the load. I think if anything, the Jordan Morris at the number 9 experiment this year has gone much better and been much more productive than I expected it would be. You could go back and listen to the shows when we were debating Rui Diaz versus Morris, and I was saying I would start Rui Diaz because I didn't think Jordan at the 9 would be anywhere near as effective and productive as he is from out wide, and he's kind of proved me wrong. Yeah. He's been very productive as the number 9, and I'm not against the notion of signing a DP number 9 and having the flexibility like we talked about of being able to move Jordan between the 2 positions and playing him up top when it's necessary and moving him out wide when you have that DP number 9. Like I think that's a great idea for how to handle the roster. But the idea that he has not been performing, he's only eating against bad teams. I think you are. What's the term for it? Like that is a symptom of a different issue than is being talked about.
It's definitely like you're looking for an indictment against Jordan Morris rather than looking at the whole problem itself. Like you're so zoomed in on one specific problem area that you're forgetting the context of the rest of the team. Like if you can upgrade Jordan at the 9, if you can upgrade from Rusnak at the 10, hell yeah, that's what every soccer team should do. That's like roster building. No one is going to argue with you on that. But to say that this team is not succeeding in these big games because Albert Rusnak and Jordan Morris aren't producing, that's silly. They're the only ones producing. So guess what? When a team figures out how to shut them down or contain them, what's going to happen? Nothing. Because the problem, which was addressed in the offseason allegedly with the Pedro de la Vega signing, was a more explosive outside, playmaker that can add that second layer, that third layer. Guess what? He hasn't played. And now that he has, it's looked a little bit more dynamic, potentially. He hasn't scored yet or anything, but I agree with you. I think that people get so focused on their own agendas, us included.
True.
That they get blinded by the quality. Are the Sounders a top-tier team? No. Is Jordan Morris the best 9 in the league? No. Is Albert Rusnak the best 10 in the league? No. But it doesn't matter because those 2 on this team are producing. And if you are able to keep them somehow on the roster and build around them and get De La Vega to contribute, you're gonna be way better off. But if you can replace them, do it. But like to say that the whole team is struggling and that Jordan Morris shouldn't be the 9 because like he can't score against big game opponents is dumb. It's stupid. It's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, like I said, I don't agree necessarily with the path that has been used to reach this conclusion. I don't think the issue is actually that complicated. I think we make it more complicated than it is. I mean, you have a situation where, your number 10 and your number 9 have both been reasonably productive this year, including a stretch where they were among the hottest 1-2 punches in the league by statistical output. But you have a situation where your DP number 9 is a bench player who's not producing when he does play.
Yep.
You have a situation where your U22 winger has been injured and out of favor for most of the year and isn't contributing at all. And then your big signing, like you said, that was supposed to address this has been injured and hasn't played all year either. So you're just you're getting nothing from all 3 of those spots on the roster. And that has kneecapped your attacking output. So I don't know. I think the thing that kind of bothers me about these narratives, which by the way, it's not just TT, like these are narratives that have been pervasive in other places as well.
Correct.
Is it's like, I don't like blaming the guys that are carrying the load and actually producing, that kind of, there's just something that rubs me the wrong way about that. I think both Jordan and Rusnak have been playing their asses off for a lot of this stretch, even when the team has been struggling. And the reason that they got hot and were able to feast on that soft part of the schedule in the middle of the season was predominantly because those 2 guys were carrying the load and being very productive in spite of the fact that they were getting nothing from those other areas of the roster that I talked about. So anyway,
I think
that's how I see it.
Yeah, I think it's actively funny too to be like the 2 guys having the best seasons of their entire career, arguably, are the ones and the reason that the Sounders aren't doing well. It's dumb. The reason the Sounders aren't doing well is because the roster build is bad. Is because they refuse to buy out Raul, and maybe you think, oh, he's going to be productive. He's not. I think we can both agree. Raul is not productive. He's just not productive. He's not the player he was. The roster build is the problem. And what I see here, respect to Taylor Twellman, you're always welcome on the show because I want you to give this shit right back to me, is that you were looking for you were at your conclusion. You put the cart before the horse.
That's what I was trying to say earlier.
Yeah, you came to your conclusion and found statistics to make that make sense. Because guess what? This is why I hate statistics. That's what you can do. It's the same thing with like, okay, XG on a 1-game basis.
Oh, okay, all right.
Listen. Okay. This is defensive XG.
Okay.
XG in a large sample size is something that is valid to look at. XG on a 1-game basis is not super helpful.
All right, you actually got to a reasonable take there. And there's another point that Mark Kastner from Sounder at Heart, shout out Mark, shout out Sounder at Heart, sounderatheart.com/LS, that he brought up in the discussion on AP's thread was just the fact that, when you play better teams, oftentimes they are going to have more talent on defense. They're going to be able to game plan to neutralize your normal game plans more effectively, and that's just kind of how the sport works, right?
Yep.
Like there's going to be games where you're playing against higher level competition where your normal game plan isn't going to work as well. You need to be able to be more multifaceted and get production from other sources in those situations, not blame the guys that are carrying the load and are producing. So anyway, it's nice to see the national pundits weighing in on these things. It's always funny to see how different their perspective is from the outside compared to us who, live and breathe it every day. But I think, like I said, it's not even about TT's take as much as it is about the broader narratives that have kind of come out of this season of struggles. So anyway, unless you have anything else on the national pundits, I think we can just chug along to the agenda check, Noah. And if anyone has takes on the issue that we were talking about, feel free to drop them in the comments.
Yeah.
I did want to address one. Noah, I have bad news.
Oh no!
I looked at the YouTube comments again.
You didn't.
I did. We got a really funny one that I did want to address before we get into the agenda check. This was funny. I don't know if you saw this, but so there's a guy who's been commenting on YouTube who he's like fervently anti-Rusnak. He really doesn't like
the anti-Rusnak brigade.
I don't know if he's part of like the brigade because I feel like there's a
ancillary.
Twitter brigade, and then there's one guy in our disgruntled guy in our YouTube comments. I think his name is Caleb or something, and
we see you and love you, Caleb.
Caleb, thank you for watching the videos. Appreciate you. But basically,
Caleb subbed,
he commented, and it was something it was like vaguely threatening. He said, if you're really about that life and want to talk about the Rusnak thing, hop in my DMs because I'm ready for the smoke or something like that.
Dang.
So I just wanted to say, I'm not going to hop into your DMs to do the Rusnak debate. There's actually never been anything more not happening in the history of time than exactly that. But I do I say that facetiously, but I appreciate you tuning in. But I'm not going to hop in your DMs for the Rusnak debate. That's just, I'm not, and it's not even limited to Caleb. I won't be hopping into anybody's DMs for the Rusnak debate.
He doesn't even hop into my DMs, folks.
Yeah. So I did want to just put that out there. All right, let's hit this agenda check. There's 4 of them written down. This episode of Lobbing Scorchers is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based seller. Not only are they a local company, but they've been supporting independent Seattle soccer media since 2011 and are run by Sounders fans. They offer the best boutique wines in the world to members of their mailing list with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest. Their model is simple. 1, they email compelling offers. 2, you request bottles that sound appealing. 3, your wine arrives at their Soto warehouse and is ready for pickup or shipping. Their Soto tasting room is also open to the public. If you're interested in joining their mailing list or learning more about them, visit fullpullwines.com. Put down 3, you just wrote down 1. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the Pedro de la Vega is the savior agenda. This is where we can do our takes on de la Vega's performance in this game, because I thought there was some good moments again. Frustrating to see. He should have had a goal. He should have had a goal. He scored 2 goals that have gotten waved off for really frustrating reasons. There was the one in Leagues Cup, which it still really upsets me.
Yep.
That goal.
It was cool.
It was a cool goal. Should have counted. And then this goal, again, you just wish that the positioning had been on point there, because really, it's frustrating to have an offside goal where the offside doesn't even give you an advantage. All he had to do was be an inch.
It was a good defensive play too, to be fair, by the Portland defender who saw him.
That's a good point.
Made the move before the kick was not to give Portland any love, but
that is a fair point. But he should have had a goal in the game. I thought he had other genuinely dangerous moments. He had a good look-on goal that got last ditch blocked at one point. His passing, I think, continues to be very good. I think you can see him gaining chemistry, specifically with Jordan. So I think based on what I've seen from him the past couple of games, at least, I still feel reasonably encouraged with his prospects of being an impact player for this team. And, hopefully as soon as the playoffs this year and down the stretch run of the season here, if that happens, a lot of narratives could flip on their head, because that's the most important thing that this roster needs right now, is for him to break out and be contributing on a game-by-game basis. And I think we haven't seen it fully come to fruition yet, but I'm still at a point where I think there's reason to believe that it can happen, honestly, based on what I've seen. And I think at least the encouraging thing for me is that we've seen a progression to it, where as he's gotten more fit and gotten more chemistry with the other guys on the team, he's looked progressively better. And I thought he looked pretty good in this game. I did.
Yeah, listen, okay, here's how I feel about this. I had declared this agenda ceased, dead, life support even. We just saw that heartbeat blip, Ari. We were in the hospital crying, the flowers on the table, about to pull the plug, and you just hear that boop, boop. The heartbeat is back. I think there's a potential. I don't know if he's going to be the savior yet, but it's alive.
He was cooking early in the game. He really was. It was looking good. I was intrigued, and I think. I don't think anyone is really has very high MLS Cup aspirations right now, given what we've seen with some of the teams near the top of the Shield race and stuff. Right. There's a few of them out there, but this is, at least for me personally, this is a subplot to keep an eye on that I think has implications for the rest of this season and really going towards the future when next season, this roster I think is going to look quite a bit different, regardless of where you fall on the Rusnak Morris debate. Like there's going to be some moving parts, and I think you need to make an evaluation on this player and how much of the load you are entrusting him to carry going forward. And there was some takes flying around out there about how he shouldn't be starting and stuff, and they need to go back to what got them those results early in the season, and that he should be a bench player. I think you need to get him as many minutes as he's physically able, because it's about making an evaluation on the player at this point. Like it can't be like, remember when Leo Chu was first on the team and they wouldn't play him and the evaluation on him got delayed a really long time. Yep. And that's just, you don't want to be in a situation like that, especially because this player you've invested too much, both financially and on the impact that he's supposed to make on this team, to be doing any sort of thing where you're not giving him minutes. So
no. And it's like, are you downgrading putting him in? I don't think so. Like you don't know exactly what it's going to be, but I sure don't think you're downgrading by letting him play. Yeah. And that is really what you want to look at when you want to evaluate a player. It was like the Rothrock thing. We were like, give him minutes. Maybe he'll cook. Maybe he won't. Give him minutes. I mean, we know ball, so of course it turned out and worked out, and we've never been wrong about letting someone cook before. But I think that
was an all-time dart throw by us.
That was an incredible. We will never get over that.
No,
I think we should both.
It's made this season worth it.
Yeah, we need to get. I think we should get matching Paul Rothrock tattoos. Are you in?
I mean, you're the tatted guy. I don't have one yet, but it might have to happen. Okay, I have a new agenda that I've talked about this a lot this season, but I wanted to officially wanted to cement it as an agenda, and that's when we talk about the roster priorities for this team over the offseason and going forward, I have make an attacking fullback a priority agenda. And like I said, Nuhu I think has been playing pretty well the last few games at least. But I just think when we've talked a lot about getting more production from out wide with the thought that, they need to sign another winger or sign a 9. So maybe you can move Jordan out wide and have him account for some of that production and get De La Vega healthy and all that. But I just really want to see this team have fullbacks that are dangerous going forward again. That was a blueprint for this team for a long time. Jovan Jones had one of the more productive left back seasons I've seen in MLS a few years ago, and it was glorious. Remember how sick he was? Just the jukes he had and the service he had, and even Brad Smith, for as much heat as Brad Smith took for his defensive shortcomings, he was a very effective.
That dude is still scoring, by the way, at age 55.
He's playing pretty well for the Houston Dynamo, but he's all just skill set wise. He was a very effective player going forward and very dangerous from the left side. And I think this roster really needs that. Really, the modern game is predicated in large part around being able to do that.
Well, the more
not fully predicated, but it's a big part of the modern game.
Everyone needs to be goal dangerous. I think as many players as you can physically have possible in some kind of way need to be goal dangerous. You're right. That's the way the modern game is. That's the way our beautiful football has turned out. And having an attacking fullback, yeah, I agree with you. I think that should be a priority. Jackson Reagan and Yamar getting on the score sheet. Another thing that we were hitting on, that we were this needs to happen. They need to be more productive in front of goal because they're big bodies, they're tall, and that finishing, one goal from anyone against Portland brings you a draw. That's 1 point. That's better than a loss. You need everyone to be goal dangerous. I agree with you.
Look at the crew. Look at the crew, how they play. Their fullback, I think they have the best attacking fullbacks in the league. And they have 4 of them because Wilfred Nancy is that's how they built their roster, is being able to do that.
Copy paste.
And this is coming from a guy who thinks that Nuhu has plenty of value in his own right, but I view Nuhu as a defensive specialist, that he is good at what he does, but it's a very specific skill that I almost feel I don't know if you could have a situation where he would accept more of a role where he comes on when the team is ahead and needing to protect a lead or something like that. But I just think you've sort of maxed out what you can do offensively, starting him game in, game out. Like, I will say that. Even if there is value in being able, like, his ability to be able to lock down people 1v1. But I just, I want to see a Jovan Jones, Brad Smith type skill set on this team, just because I think that'll help a lot of these issues with the attacking output, and it's more fun to watch, man. I loved watching Jovan Jones. He was so fun to watch.
Yeah.
And that season where he had like 11 assists as a left back, that was great. That's what this team needs.
Yeah.
I mean, it needs a few things, but that's
a lot of things.
That's one thing.
Yeah.
That's one thing that it needs.
Cosign. Agenda. Cemented.
Appreciate that. The Georgie agenda. Okay, I'm excited for this one actually, because I'm in on this.
Okay.
I'm in on this after watching this game. Like, it was another fun one, and my take on Georgie has been pretty consistent in that, it's fun to watch and I'm happy for him to keep getting minutes, but like, I don't really know how functionally different it is than what you get from Leo Chu.
Right.
Really, like, some exciting moments with a little bit of a lack of end product. But like, just the way he was cooking guys one-on-one in this game, and he's got some really nice like body control when he's getting around defenders, like his body control and the ball control, like his technical ability is quite good, I think. And it's just pretty fun to watch, and I see why he got signed. And I think for a team that has struggled to produce an attack, especially in these last couple of games, in these rivalry games, like, sure, give him more minutes.
Yeah.
I thought this was a good Georgie shift. It was fun, and I'm all about. I'm with the agenda of people who think that he should play more. 'Cause, I mean, why not? You might as well at this point.
No,
It's similar to the Rothrock thing.
Yeah,
right?
no, I'm pro seeing out Georgie. I thought that. I mean, I wish they would have signed more players, but like, if they were gonna sign someone from Tacoma, I was stoked with Georgie. I'm not bought in or not bought in. I think that we need a little bit more sample size, but I'm in for the ride. I'm in for the ride. Let's see what happens.
Hell
Why
yeah.
not?
All right, and then you added another agenda.
I added another agenda here.
Okay.
This one's gonna get a little fiery, scorchery. This agenda is Craig Weibel. Is he out, Ari? Should he be out? Hot seat? Question mark.
I mean, I definitely think he's under a huge microscope right now. There's no doubt about that. At least, the fan base is not happy with the lack of roster movement. So he's definitely going to have to deal with that microscope. I mean, I do still think, like, it's not like we have all that much to judge him on, but like what we do have to judge him on so far hasn't really worked. Like, Abear, Moose hasn't worked. Who am I missing? There's like a couple.
Nathan.
Raul wasn't bought out, but how much of that? I guess what I still question is how much of it is Craig Weibs versus how much of it is ownership. Like, if it's more ownership that is saying, like, we can't buy out Raul to give you the flexibility to get a new number 9, then you can change the GM, but it's not going to make a difference.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Bell.
Let's. I think he's going to get a chance to make more of his own imprint on the team. So I'm going to wait to fully speak on this agenda until we see the moves that he makes in the next window or two, and if they work out. But I mean, the reality is a lot of moves have to be made, and that's going to determine his fate one way or the other, regardless of what we think.
Yeah, I think that he is definitely on a hot seat. I don't think that there's any question around that. I think that whether it's his fault or not, I think that he's going to be the guy to take the axe. If things don't work. Like you said, I agree with you. I don't know how much ownership is giving him. I don't know anything about it. But if I was him, I would definitely, I would be getting that LinkedIn updated. That's all I'm going to say. But again, the agenda could turn around. But I think after last week, and then losing to a rival and bombing out of the 2 competitions you said you were stoked to be in, I think that this might be the lowest he's been while being a Sounders GM.
I mean, I'd agree that his stock with the fan base is definitely it's not high right now.
No, definitely not.
All right, let's get into questions. Thank you to everyone, as always, who submitted in the aftermath of the L. Appreciate you all getting the discourse flowing. We're going to hit a few right here. Noah, what do we got?
This one comes from Shad. Shad asks, this has got to be one of the toughest weeks as a fan. I'm not sure how to feel about any sort of optimism about this team. Just feels like they are so far away from the top.
Yeah, I don't blame you for feeling that way, Shad. I mean, I can try and make the case for optimism. I'm sort of an optimistic fan by nature. You know, I like sports and being a fan because I like to have fun and. I try to like keep it from having like a negative impact on my mental health. And like I always tell people that like when a team that I root for or am invested in is doing poorly, like what I do to deal with it is try and see the comedy in it, which like especially this season, Seattle's given us a fair amount of comedy, which I think has made it a little easier for me to deal with personally. But what I would say is that, I mean, I've been saying that I don't think they're as far as it might seem based on the results that we've seen this season. I think you have the foundation of a good offense between the number 10 and the number 9 that have been producing pretty well lately, and you need to bolster that area of the roster. You can't have a roster where the DP number 9 and the one of your U22 signings are like not playing or not contributing at all. If you make replacement signings for those two areas of the roster right there that hit and you actually get production out of that, like I think there's a scenario where you could be cooking, because I think this team is still pretty good to sometimes very good defensively. So like, I don't know, the way I see it, there's more of a foundation than people are kind of giving credence to right now. And I think what it is that expectations have been so high for this team for so long that when they're mid, which is what they are this year, 1.5 whatever points per game, it feels like they're actively bad or terrible because, you know, we're used to this team playing up at 1.8, 1.9. But like I see them as more mid than bad, and it's easier to get from mid to good and good to great, you know, than it is to go from actively bad to good or great. Do
you think this is the first
I don't think there's that big a gap.
Do you think this is the first time we've experienced a cycle this hard? Because I think the Sounders they've always been a team where they said, we don't rebuild, we reload, right? Is this the first time where we're kind of experiencing that middling? Because every team has cycles, right? And I think it also helps that everyone around us in the league has got really, like, just MLS has changed. Right. Yeah. Do you think this is the first time that Sounders fans are experiencing that? No,
like what I would compare it to is 2016 when, I mean, people forget because they somehow won MLS Cup that year, but that team was 6-12-2, I believe, at the time that Ziggy got let go and then Ladero came in. But honestly, that year is a great example for what hitting on one signing even can do for you. That year, everyone thought that squad was fully cooked, way more honestly than this squad was cooked. This squad is at 1.5 points per game and they have a winning record and a positive goal differential. That team was terrible.
They were bad.
And literally all they did was sign Ladero and they won MLS Cup.
Yeah.
That's it. So like, I'm not saying that's for sure going to happen again and they can just do that every time, but like it kind of shows you how fast your fortunes can change in MLS. So no, I honestly think the 2016 situation was worse. Like I remember how insanely bad those vibes were after the SKC game before Siggy got fired.
Yes.
Like they were one of the worst teams in the league. They were in like 12th place. They were 6 games, you know, under 500 winning percentage. Like that was bad. And they won MLS Cup that year. I don't know if they can replicate that because I mean, there was no like new signing that came in to give a boost. And then also I just think the level of competition at the top of the table is, I mean, it's high.
Yeah.
It's high.
I agree. I think that 2016 is a perfect example, but I also think that the talent gap in this version of Major League Soccer versus that version lends itself to create basically a worse scenario for the Sounders as a team. This next one comes from Matt Harrington. Matt asks, the L wasn't for a lack of chances. Numerous corners, no finishing. I would say that since Ozzie Alonso left years ago, the Sounders have struggled at holding the midfielder spot. They lack defensive control in the middle of the field. Too many teams boss us around there.
Yeah, that's a great point, Matt. And I think we hit on that both in our interview with Nico Moreno and on one of our last shows, where that's another area of the roster that I think needs to get bolstered. Like, a decision has got to be made on JP. Like, you've got to evaluate whether you can rely on him to the extent that you thought you could going into this season. And really, we were talking about just wanting to add like kind of a nastier, dirty work type skill set, which JP does a lot of dirty work, but he's not like a pit bull ball winner like Aussie type swagger. And that's another thing that I think this roster could really use, and an addition that I would love to see them make, because I agree, they like, for as solid as they are defensively most of the time, especially against better teams, it feels too easy to play through them in that area of the field at times. And that's when they get into trouble defensively, because when you're easy to play through in that area of the field, that's when you lose control of game state and you get ran on a little bit. So I think a signing exactly like you're saying is like, that's the way to address that.
Yeah, I literally have nothing to add. That was so beautifully said.
Thank you for listening to the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network, which now includes Nos Arietes, Lobbing, Scorchers, and the Cooler Guild. We've been independent since August of 2023, but need your support to make sure it continues. Although this podcast is free, it's only made possible by your continued support. Memberships start as low as $25 a year, which not only helps make podcasts like this one happen, but also gets you access to everything we produce. If you're able to support us at higher levels, starting at $75 a year, you gain access to a host of other perks, most notably entry into our members-only Discord, where the smartest, funniest, and most engaged commenters share their thoughts and ideas. To find out more, just visit sounderatheart.com and click the subscribe button in the top right corner. Thanks for listening.
Sorry. This is why they pay you the big bucks. This next one comes from Soundaboy. I love Jordan, but it has become more apparent each week that he is not the 9 that will take the Sounders to the next level. You can't just conjure up a Denny Bawanga, but it's easy to imagine a solid DP9 to replace Raul being the spark that this team needs to secure points in these scenarios.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily disagree that a DP9 is a necessary addition to this roster. I still don't understand where this take about Jordan not being like a functional 9 is coming from, because like I said, like I feel like I'm calling this pretty objectively as someone who doubted the whole idea of starting him over Raul, because I think there's a lot more evidence in his career of him being effective and productive out wide than there is of him playing up top. He's been very productive up top. Yeah. That's like it's sort of, you're talking about what TT was talking about. Like I came to the exact opposite conclusion of that, which is that there's kind of two ways you could approach it. You could go with Jordan as your full-time number 9 next year and try and bolster the squad from out wide with some of your big time, or with a big time addition. Mm-hmm. Or you could sign a DP number 9, which this is what I would do. I would sign a DP number 9, like more of a like for like Raul as much as you can, and then have the flexibility to rotate Jordan between playing out wide and playing out top. And honestly, like when he's playing out wide, he's sort of like a hybrid winger second striker anyway. Not fully, like you see him trying to create a lot more when he's playing out there. But I don't know. I think the way I would approach it is sign a number 9 that allows you to kind of do both things with him. I like that idea of that flexibility.
I personally don't think that wing Jordan Morris as he ages is going to be the right option. I think that if you sign a DP9, you have to be willing and ready to move on from Jordan Morris if that time does come.
It's an interesting point.
I do not believe that the Seattle Sounders would ever do that. He's
kind of a Sounder for life, for sure. But like honestly, if I mean, I think you could have him play both positions next year, maybe the year after that. I think you're right. As he gets into his 30s, having him be a burner out wide is probably not sustainable. But I think if we're talking about planning for the next season or two, I could see it, and I think there's something to be said for the flexibility that could give you. However, like, I don't hate the idea of him carrying the load up top. I really don't. Like, I know a lot of people disagree with that. And these splits against the good teams versus the supposedly bad teams are like the stats that people are producing to support why they don't like that. I feel like I've seen enough of a sample of him being very effective up top and, more importantly, productive enough up top, where if they went into next year trying to bolster the squad from out wide with the idea that he's going to be the main number 9, I don't hate it. I don't.
Would you rather have a DP like JP replacement or a DP 9?
I think I would say DP JP replacement.
Yeah,
I think I would like
especially if you're going to move on from Obed.
Right. Yeah, and which I think he's probably going to get sold. So, yeah, it is. It's an interesting debate, though. There's definitely like different or different pathways that you can take to bolstering this roster.
And I don't think any of them are wrong, by the way.
Right. You can make a case for all of them. In fact, if you want to make your case in the comments. Make your case in the comments. If you disagree with how I would approach it, throw that takedown.
This last one here comes from Spirit of 74. Why didn't Leo Chu travel? Are we just going to sit a player who doesn't vibe with the team anymore? Look, I love Chu, but clearly Schmetzer doesn't. Did we just let another transfer window go by without selling a player we're not going to play at all?
Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on with this, but I mean, Schmetz said that he's hurt. I thought
Alleged.
that. Yeah, so there's conspiracy theories that maybe he's not hurt and it's because he's fallen out of favor or whatever the case may be. I honestly don't know, but supposedly he's injured. He's been injured. There was an actual injury for sure earlier this year, but he's also been out of favor anyway. I mean, I don't know. It does feel like the Leo Chu era is probably coming to a close. And, I think like when we're talking about the issues that this team has had this year, the sort of the lack of production that Seattle's gotten from that spot on the roster has been a big issue. And that's unfortunate because there was really a period of time last year where it really looked like Leo Chu was breaking out in MLS. Like, he was playing week in, week out. He looked pretty dangerous, not super consistently, but with like semi-consistency. He had the 4-assist game, which that was an electric game from him and Jordan. That combination looked like it had a lot of potential after that game. He had the Whitecaps game where he scored a couple goals and scored the game winner. He really delivered that win. He scored a goal away at the Galaxy in a game that Seattle won. So when people talk about the Leo Chu era, it's been a total worthless zero, I really don't think that's entirely accurate. It just hasn't been consistent enough. And then this year it kind of has been just bad. So we'll see what happens with it. But I think out of all the movements that you're going to see this offseason and going forward, that's probably going to be a part of it.
Yeah. So according to our good friend Nico Moreno, he said that Leo Chu was at full practice today, Tuesday, and that he was under the impression that he had not been a part of the 18 because of Brian Schmetzer's decision, but Brian had referred to it as an injury for Leo's absence. Listen, I'm going to speculate here that he's a goner. He's not going to be with this team much longer. I think that there was just maybe the straw that broke the camel's back was his random ass tantrum with Raul. Maybe it was that, and then coming back and just not playing and getting mad every time he doesn't play. I don't know the situation, but the reality is when you're a player and you're not getting playing time and you're not playing well when you do get that playing time and then you're unhappy, it's probably best for both the club and the player to part ways. But honestly, Leo Chu showed a lot of sparkle and shine that was good potential. But I think the Sounders, especially with all the GM turnover, I think they really missed their window to sign him, and I really just think he fell through the cracks, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. All right, that's it for questions. Thank you all so much, as always, for submitting those. You can always crash my mentions to get the discourse flowing after every single Seattle Sounders result. So appreciate you all. All right. Let's preview this Columbus game, then hop around the league, then hit on a couple of these news items at the end, and then we'll call it a wrap for episode 62. Does that sound good, Noah?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Columbus Crew, I mean, I don't think we need to go like super in depth on this other than to say that, what I can tell you guys about the Columbus Crew is that this is arguably the best team in the league right now. A lot of people have them as the best team in the league right now. I'm of the mind that Inter Miami at full strength, I would still give the edge to Inter Miami, but like you could easily make the argument for the Crew in that discussion. And they really like, as much as I think that in one game I would give the edge to a full strength Inter Miami, the Crew are the ones that have the trophies to show for it. I mean, Inter Miami did win Leagues Cup last year, but Columbus won Leagues Cup this year and MLS Cup last year. And they really, they play the best ball in the league on their day. And they're a juggernaut. They're a buzzsaw. They've only lost one game, I think, all year at home. And they have the best coach in the league. So it's super great timing for this matchup. But here's what I will tell you guys. They have a lot of international absences for this game. A lot.
Yeah, they do.
Cucho, not playing. This is arguably the best player in the league right now, other than Messi, who's been injured for a while. So, like, Cucho's the alpha dog of all of MLS right now. If like in one game, like of who like feels the most inevitable to get you in an individual game, I would put Cucho over Bouanga. Like it's tough, and Bouanga is more like physically intimidating. But like Cucho has been out playing Bouanga over the last like calendar year or so. So that's, I mean, the reason he's not going to be there is because he's got called up by Colombia, which is not easy to do. And that's kind of cool for him. And I'm glad that he's getting recognized for the type of ball that he's been playing in MLS because he's been ridiculous. So, I mean, that is admittedly a big absence for them. And, you know, Patrick Schulte is going to be gone as well. I think Steven Moreo, like one of their electric fullbacks that I was talking about earlier, I think he's going to be gone for this game. There's a couple more. I think they're missing like 5 or 6 guys for this game, including some of their best players. But I think they should still have Diego Rossi out there, who he and Cucho are the best 1-2 punch in the league. All respect to my previous agendas. And like he's been a great MLS player for a long time, dating back to his days with LAFC. So he'll be a problem. Darlington Nagbe is one of the most skilled and winningest defensive midfielders that's ever played in the league. Everywhere he's gone, he's won trophies, whether it's Portland, Atlanta, or Columbus. He's like in terms of like tempo setters and midfield metronomes, like he's that good. So Rossi, Nagbe, and Christian Ramirez is still a very effective forward in the league. So all that's to say, this is not going to be an easy game for Seattle, even with all the absences that Columbus has. And I think it's kind of a smash and grab. If you can get a point, you take it and run.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not looking forward to playing them, even down all of their players, considering like it's still a Wilfred Nancy coached team, and you know you got to go there and play. Like it's just not a great scenario. But what I will say, full strength Sounders, you know, coming off of 2 brutal losses, this is a good get back game. I'm excited to see it. It could be a great match. Do I expect them to win? I don't expect anything. I hope that they do.
The Crew are, I mean, I hope it's an entertaining game. The Crew are fun to watch, and I think even with all the players that they have gone, like Wilfred Nancy I think he's one of the best MLS coaches I've ever seen at like getting his players to execute his game plans and his principles. Like it seems like everything he preaches, he has full buy-in, and they're able to make that come to life on the field more than any team I've seen right now in MLS right now. Like it's very different than how Inter Miami does it. Inter Miami just stacked so many talented players that they just kind of overwhelm you with skill and talent. Whereas
Right.
the Crew, they have a very loaded, very talented roster, but then they have just elite execution and application of game plan and principles. So
Yeah.
they're an
this-
impressive squad.
The Sounders are sitting at 8th right now. They're not, even if they lose this match, they're not going to get jumped. They'll stay right at 8th. But like, do you want to sit at 8th? No. Like, you need to get at least a point. 1 point could bring you up as high as 6th. I mean, that's great, but you're still barely in contention for the playoffs. Every point matters, and they're very lucky that the Crew will be shorthanded for this match.
All right, I think that's about enough on the Columbus preview. Let's jump around the league, do some winners and losers. Winners, I've got the Houston.
champagne.
I've got the Houston Dynamo, 2-0 win at LAFC. I do think this was a lot more about LAFC being just absolutely exhausted and depleted after the gauntlet that they've just played than it is about like the Dynamo being super good. But, you know, the Dynamo did what Seattle couldn't do, which was take advantage and capitalize on a depleted and exhausted LAFC squad.
Yeah.
And they did it in LAFC's own building, which is a really hard place to play. So credit to Benny O and company. And the Dynamo are an interesting squad right now because they bolstered their squad. They signed a couple new DPs, and one of them scored a Denny Bwanga-esque goal in this game and then tore his ACL. So that's unfortunate. That sucks. But they do have Ezekiel Ponce, who's should be a boost to their squad. And maybe, you know, the Dynamo, they're more interesting than they were previously.
Yeah. It's also funny they're literally going to play LAFC again this week.
That's too bad for them.
Yeah, like just tough scenes.
FC Cincinnati, so they beat CF Montreal 4-1, but they look that like they might be back. They made a couple signings. They signed a CB, which they needed to do with all the injuries that they've had that have been kind of kneecapping them for a while. But this had an insane goal. But Luca Oriano, who scored a midfield goal already earlier this season, did it again, this time on a set piece from even further out. It's another, the first one was, I think, 65 plus yards out. This was further, just saw the goalkeeper off his line and nuked it and made it. Like, you're lucky to hit one of those once in a career. He's done it twice in the last, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, what are the actual odds of goals like that twice in the season? Anyway, definitely go look up that highlight if you haven't seen it, because there's another insane goal by this guy who he's looking like a star for FC Cincinnati. That was, God, I mean, their roster build with Pat Noonan and Chris Albright,
Just
so
nasty,
good.
dude.
Like they lost Ballarreal, who was one of the best players with that skill set last season, and they brought in Oriano, who's like even better.
Yeah.
Like, they actually might have upgraded on Ballarreal, which I did not think was possible. So credit to them. And then I got Columbus for beating NYC 4-2. It was a game where NYC was right there, and I think they were even winning this game at one point, and then Columbus poured it on late. But if you haven't seen NYC midfielder Keaton Parks' quotes from after the game, blazing hot, he said it was all the ref's fault and that the ref basically jobbed NYCFC out of points in this game. So definitely go look up Keaton Parks' post-game quotes from Columbus NYC, because he's not a blazing hot coach presser, but it's definitely a player who's getting fined. Losers, hate to do it, but Seattle Sounders knocked out of the U.S. Open Cup and losing to Portland in like a 4-day span. Tough.
Not good, Ari.
The scene is undeniably a tough one. If you get eliminated from a tournament and lose by a rival at home and then lose to another rival back-to-back, kind of hard not to end up in this section. I think that was one of the worst weeks Seattle's had in a long time, like straight up.
Yeah. There's no coming back.
Like, there's been some rough moments this season, but that was tough.
I think, and like I had tweeted, it felt worse because I expected it. Like, it was one of those where it was like, man, this sucks, but somehow I knew this was going to happen, and that just makes it all the worse.
Austin FC lost 1-0 to the Caps at home. The Caps scored a crazy banger, but I mean, Austin FC, not very good. And then I got the New York Red Bulls for their 2-0 loss to Philly at home, which Philly are back, I think, pretty much. But the Red Bulls have been having a great year, so that's a tough result for them. All right, I just had a couple. There's a couple news items we got written down here, so let's hit these and then get out of here for episode 62. I was on the Zoom call for the Whitecaps' new DP signing that they had today, which they were able to do because he was a free agent. A guy by the name of Stuart Armstrong, who he's a Scottish midfielder. And they actually bought out Luis Martins to be able to make the space to sign him. So you can do that.
That's allowed?
You can do that. And the Whitecaps did it. The Whitecaps did it. And
the Money Ballers?
The Money Ballers they signed a new DP so the Whitecaps centerpiece of their whole team is Ryan Gauld, Scottish Messi. And so this guy, he is also Scottish, and he played with Ryan Gauld in Scotland for a year. They know each other. So I think that's part of how this came about. But Axel Schuster, their sporting director, was talking at his press conference today, and he was laying out why he called Stuart Armstrong what he's hoping is a missing piece for them. Which the storyline with the Whitecaps, I actually I wrote about this as well. But the storyline for the Whitecaps has been how do they go from good to great, which is sort of I would say a situation that Seattle is in right now. I think Seattle is more like how to go from mid to good and then good to great. But the Caps are in a very similar area and have been for a while. They're hoping this signing is what does that for them. So I'll be interested to see if that happens because they actually have enough time towards the end of the season here to for him to make an impact.
Yeah.
So could be a potentially significant development for the Caps.
It's always terrible, too, to see your rivals living your dream.
Yeah, exactly. Sounders could really use Stu Armstrong.
Yeah.
Stu Arms. Stewie Arms.
A call to arms, perhaps.
All right. You had one more on Obed Vargas. What do we got with this?
We did. Obed Vargas was called up to the Mexican national team, his first call-in since switching his allegiances. Not that long ago. He got a U23 call-up, so he may make his debut. Obviously, we're not going to know until it happens, but today it was announced by Brian Schmetzer that he was called up for the U23 team, but has been training with the first team in Mexico, so the national team. I think we've been pretty high on him, and we've been pretty stoked that has the chance to be able to go and play for Mexico. This is the Obed stock is rising, and folks, he is not going to be cheap.
Yeah, no, congrats to Obed without a doubt. I'm definitely interested to follow his career with El Tri, and as someone who's famously a big fan and supporter of El Tri, I'm definitely invested in this. But in all seriousness, it gives us a reason to kind of follow what's going on with El Tri and this, we talked a lot about with Obed, and not just him, but a lot of their player pool right now, they're going through a period of generational change. And I think that if they're smart, he should be a big part of that because, I don't know their player pool well at all, but I can't imagine there's all that many guys coming up that have as much upside as he does. So I think
experience at his age.
Yeah. I really hope that, he gets an actual shake and an opportunity with them to make an impact at the international level. And that only makes Seattle look good, the better he is, both at the club level when they sell him and on the international stage.
I agree. Good job, Obed.
Good job, Obed. All right, I think we can call it right there for episode 62. Thank you all so much, as always, for tuning in. We really appreciate all the support and the increase in listenership that we continue to see. Thank you so much to all our subs. Thank you to our listeners on wherever you get your podcast platforms. And thank you to our new audience on YouTube. You guys are super awesome, and we love to see the numbers that we're seeing on there. Comment, rate, subscribe, write us a review.
Share with Obed.
Four of you sub to get us to 500.
Yep.
Comment on the video, like the video. Did I miss anything?
I think you got
I think I just hit everything. We'll see you for episode 63. Until then, we out.
Peace.